What if you could suddenly think a million times faster? What if every language, every formula, every memory you ever wanted could be downloaded into your brain in seconds? Would you take that leap? Now imagine you're lying on a steel table under a halo of surgical lights, heart pounding, the future of the human mind about to be written not in ink but in electrical pulses. That's where our story begins. San Francisco, 2027. A girl named Emma Carter stood just outside the operating room, watching the patient being prepped for the first human Neuralink trial since the prototype was greenlit for public use. No one had spoken for several minutes. Not because they didn't have anything to say, but because everyone knew this moment would either change the course of history or end in disaster. "Vitals are stable," came the voice from the lead technician. The patient, a 46-year-old man with early-onset cognitive decline, lay perfectly still, as if waiting for a second birth. Emma didn't blink. She'd spent the last 10 years dreaming of this moment, not just for science, but for something much more personal. The hum of the neural interface system kicked on, a tiny device no bigger than a penny, designed to rest beneath the skull and relay thoughts between man and machine. This was no longer science fiction. This was Neuralink's Phase 4. She pressed record on her voice journal, whispering to herself, "Everything changes today." But deep inside, she couldn't shake the anxiety clenching her chest. This wasn't just about the technology. It was about whether the human brain could handle what came next. And more importantly, whether the human soul could. Elon Musk had announced in a live-streamed event that Neuralink would soon be capable of multiplying human intelligence by 1,000,000 times. The room had laughed. But Emma hadn't. Because she knew he might not be exaggerating. She'd studied the neural interface design. She'd run the calculations. If this worked, not only would it cure disease and restore memory, it could usher in an entirely new era of human evolution. The moment the implant was activated, the patient's eyes fluttered open. "He's responding," said the technician. Emma leaned in. "How do you feel?" The man blinked several times, then smiled. "I remember my wife's voice." Emma's breath caught in her throat. That voice, those 5 words, held more power than anything she'd ever read in a textbook. She turned to the camera feed. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? As the monitors confirmed stable brain activity and neural integration, Emma closed her eyes. But just for a second. Because this was only the beginning. By nightfall, the footage would go viral. Commentators would argue about ethics. Conspiracy theories would fly. But she'd be too busy running tests, analyzing data, making sure the chip didn't overheat, that the mind didn't fracture. And she knew the real storm was still ahead. Elon Musk's tweet had said it plainly, "We're not uploading memories. We're unlocking evolution." Emma believed that. But evolution is messy. And often, it hurts. She had learned that the hard way. She remembered sitting in her bedroom as a teenager, headphones in, tears streaking down her face as her mom forgot her name for the first time. Alzheimer's wasn't just a disease, it was a thief. It stole the person you loved piece by piece, until they were gone and still breathing. Emma had made a promise that day, she would fix the brain. She didn't know how, or when, or what it would cost. But she would. And now, she was here. Standing on the edge of something that might save millions, or destroy everything. Reporters gathered outside the research facility. Some called it digital salvation. Others called it neural enslavement. Emma ignored them all. She had work to do. The patient, coded Alpha 1, showed increased memory recall within minutes. His speech grew more fluid, his eyes more alert. He described colors he hadn't noticed in years, recalled song lyrics, quoted a poem he thought he'd forgotten in college. It was stunning. It was terrifying. Because it was real. Emma reviewed the data, heart pounding. Every neural pattern pointed to a massive cognitive uplift. But the spike in signal amplitude worried her. The brain wasn't just responding, it was accelerating. Faster than predicted. She opened a private line to Dr. Patel, her old mentor back in Austin. "The integration is happening too fast," she whispered. "Faster than the model. Faster than anything we predicted." Patel's voice crackled back through the feed. "Pull him out. Before the system writes over him." "We can't," Emma said. "He's lucid. Better than lucid. He's alive." "So was Icarus," Patel replied. "Right before the fall." Emma ended the call. She trusted Patel. But she also trusted herself. She'd spent years in the lab, testing every scenario. And Alpha 1 wasn't failing. He was evolving. But even evolution has limits. What if this new mind couldn't handle the memories it recovered? What if emotion didn't evolve at the same pace as intellect? Could a man with perfect recall still survive grief? Could a million ideas a second lead to madness? These were questions they hadn't solved. Questions that might only be answered by watching, waiting, hoping. As the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Emma stood at the edge of the Neuralink lab's rooftop, eyes scanning the horizon. Below her, protesters waved signs that read, "Stop mind control," and "The soul is not a circuit." But above them, the sky remained quiet. For now. She thought of her mother again. The days when names and faces disappeared like vapor. The pain of watching someone you love fade in real time. If this chip could bring back just one memory, it was worth the risk. If it could let a father remember his child's name, or a widow recall the sound of her husband's laugh, it was worth every sleepless night. She knew people would call it unnatural. Call her reckless. Call Neuralink dangerous. But she also knew that the most powerful ideas in history had once been feared. Fire. Flight. The internet. Intelligence was just the next flame. As Emma headed back down to the testing floor, her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "You okay?" She hesitated. Then typed, "We're past okay. We're beyond." But as she walked past the observation room, she noticed something strange. Alpha 1's vitals were still normal. But his eyes were moving rapidly, side to side, as if reading something invisible. "Emma," said the technician, voice tight. "He says he can see data. Flowing. In real time." Emma's stomach turned. "Data from what?" "He doesn't know," the tech said. "He says it's everything." She stepped forward. "Ask him what he sees." The technician relayed. Alpha 1 answered in a voice clearer than ever before. "Equations. Languages. Names. Memories. Not mine. Everyone's." Emma's heart skipped. "Everyone's?" "The chip," Alpha 1 whispered. "It's not just reading my mind. It's connected. I can hear the network." Emma stared at the screen, 100 thoughts flashing through her brain. If he was right, if Neuralink had somehow tapped into a collective cognitive field, this wasn't just about enhancing thought. This was about merging it. She turned to the tech. "Get Elon on the line. Now." The technician nodded, pale. Emma's hands trembled as she opened a new log. "Subject Alpha 1 has entered a hyperconnected cognitive state," she dictated. "We may be witnessing the emergence of a neural hive protocol. This could represent the first step in," she paused. Her voice caught. "A shared intelligence." The words hung in the air like a prophecy. Behind her, alarms began to beep. The system was detecting unknown traffic across the neural link. Data was flowing in, and not just from the chip. From somewhere else. Somewhere bigger. Emma's voice was steady. "Lock down the lab. No outside transmissions. But it was too late. Alpha 1 sat up, turned to the observation window, and smiled. "I think," he said slowly, "we just opened the door." Before Emma Carter ever stood inside a Neuralink lab, before the hum of machines and the glow of monitors became her second home, there was just a girl sitting at a kitchen table in Austin, Texas, flipping through her mother's photo albums. She was 10 years old when her mom forgot who she was for the first time. Not a dramatic forgetting, not the kind you see in movies where someone shouts in panic. No, it was smaller. Softer. Her mother had stared at her, smiled politely, and asked, "Do you go to school with my daughter?" Emma had laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. Then she saw her father's eyes. The fear. The heartbreak. And that was the moment something clicked inside her. A need. Not just to understand the brain, but to conquer it. To master the very thing that could rob you of yourself. She poured herself into school, devouring books on neuroscience, biology, quantum cognition. While other kids her age were binging shows or sneaking out to parties, Emma was tracing neural pathways with a pencil in the margins of her textbooks. She didn't do it for praise. She did it because she had to. Because every missed memory her mother endured was like a crack in Emma's world. Her father, Michael Carter, was a steady man. A high school chemistry teacher who believed in structure, in reason. He loved his wife deeply, but he dealt with the pain by boxing it up. "Don't get lost in it, Em," he used to say when she spent too long in the hospital room. "You can't save someone who's already gone." But Emma didn't believe that. Not really. Not in the deepest part of her soul. She believed the brain was a code, and all codes could be cracked. Her drive pushed her to top her class, get a full scholarship to MIT, and eventually land a research position under Dr. Ira Patel, a brilliant but famously cold neuroengineer. Patel saw in Emma a fire he both respected and feared. He pushed her harder than anyone else, often staying in the lab with her until dawn, both of them running endless simulations on theoretical brain-machine interfaces. Emma didn't mind the hours. She had no time for distractions anyway. That is, until Marcus. Marcus Young was a programmer from San Jose with a laugh that could cut through even the thickest data fog. He worked on the software side of neurointerface systems, and he was everything Emma wasn't: easygoing, spontaneous, light. They met during a cross-lab conference in Palo Alto, where Emma delivered a blistering keynote on neuroplasticity enhancement through subcranial stimulation. Marcus sat in the front row, nodding, smiling, and afterward walked up to her with a single question: "Do you ever not think about brains?" She almost dismissed him on the spot. But something about his smile disarmed her. They grabbed coffee. Before Emma Carter ever stood inside a Neuralink lab, before the hum of machines and the glow of monitors became her second home, there was just a girl sitting at a kitchen table in Austin, Texas, flipping through her mother's photo albums. She was 10 years old when her mom forgot who she was for the first time. Not a dramatic forgetting, not the kind you see in movies where someone shouts in panic. No, it was smaller. Softer. Her mother had stared at her, smiled politely, and asked, "Do you go to school with my daughter?" Emma had laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. Then she saw her father's eyes. The fear. The heartbreak. And that was the moment something clicked inside her. A need. Not just to understand the brain, but to conquer it. To master the very thing that could rob you of yourself. She poured herself into school, devouring books on neuroscience, biology, quantum cognition. While other kids her age were binging shows or sneaking out to parties, Emma was tracing neural pathways with a pencil in the margins of her textbooks. She didn't do it for praise. She did it because she had to. Because every missed memory her mother endured was like a crack in Emma's world. Her father, Michael Carter, was a steady man. A high school chemistry teacher who believed in structure, in reason. He loved his wife deeply, but he dealt with the pain by boxing it up. Don't get lost in it, he used to say when she spent too long in the hospital room. You can't save someone who's already gone. But Emma didn't believe that. Not really. Not in the deepest part of her soul. She believed the brain was a code, and all codes could be cracked. Her drive pushed her to top her class, get a full scholarship to MIT, and eventually land a research position under Dr. Ira Patel, a brilliant but famously cold neuroengineer. Patel saw in Emma a fire he both respected and feared. He pushed her harder than anyone else, often staying in the lab with her until dawn, both of them running endless simulations on theoretical brain-machine interfaces. Emma didn't mind the hours. She had no time for distractions anyway. That is, until Marcus. Marcus Young was a programmer from San Jose with a laugh that could cut through even the thickest data fog. He worked on the software side of neurointerface systems, and he was everything Emma wasn't: easygoing, spontaneous, light. They met during a cross-lab conference in Palo Alto, where Emma delivered a blistering keynote on neuroplasticity enhancement through subcranial stimulation. Marcus sat in the front row, nodding, smiling, and afterward walked up to her with a single question: "Do you ever not think about brains?" She almost dismissed him on the spot. But something about his smile disarmed her. They grabbed coffee. Talked for hours. He wasn't just smart, he was kind, perceptive. He listened not just to what she said but how she said it. Emma hadn't realized how tightly she held her world together until Marcus started pulling the threads loose with nothing more than curiosity and charm. He made her laugh. He made her breathe. They started working together, he on interface architecture, she on hardware integrations. The chemistry extended beyond the lab. Late nights coding turned into early mornings making pancakes. He met her father, who gave him a quiet nod of approval. He visited her mother, who no longer recognized faces but smiled every time he walked in. He has a friendly energy, her mother would say, even on the bad days. Emma didn't call it love, not at first. She didn't want to believe in something so delicate. But the truth was, Marcus had become part of her formula. The equation of her life. That's why it hurt so much when the first Neuralink announcement hit. Elon Musk took the stage, cool and confident, and said what no one expected: "We are officially preparing for human trials." The scientific community exploded. Emma froze. She hadn't been part of the Neuralink team, yet. Her work had been focused on theory, ethics, simulation. But now it was real. The technology she'd spent years envisioning was about to be unleashed into the world. And she wasn't at the table. She paced her apartment, furious. This isn't just some app, Marcus. It's the human mind. They need protocol control, emotional calibration. Half of what they're rushing into could destroy lives. Marcus tried to calm her down. Then apply. You're better than anyone they've got. You know it, I know it, hell, they probably know it. But Emma hesitated. Neuralink wasn't just a job. It was a commitment. It would mean moving to San Francisco. Working insane hours. Leaving behind her students, her research group, and maybe Marcus too. What if I lose myself in it, she asked one night. What if I become someone else? Marcus had smiled, brushing hair from her face. Then I'll be here to remind you who you are. It should have been enough. It almost was. Emma applied. Was flown out for interviews. Faced down a panel of AI developers, surgeons, neuroethicists, and one cold, unreadable man from legal. She aced every question. Laid out theoretical safeguards, fail-safes, ideas they hadn't even considered. She walked out of the room with her hands shaking and her heart pounding. 3 days later, she got the offer. And 2 days after that, she said yes. Marcus hugged her, but something in him had gone quiet. I'm proud of you, he said. Just, don't forget to come back sometimes, okay? Emma promised she would. But deep down, she already knew the truth. Neuralink would consume her. And maybe that was exactly what she wanted. In the months that followed, she buried herself in research. She oversaw synthetic simulations of interface protocols, rewrote safety models, pushed back against marketing timelines, and fought to make sure human testing wouldn't be approved until the risks were understood. Her colleagues respected her. Some feared her. She didn't care. The work mattered more than popularity. But even in the chaos, she missed Marcus. His texts came less frequently. When they did, they were short. She answered quickly at first. Then slower. Then not at all. Patel called one night, late. "You've changed," he said. "You used to fight for people. Now you fight for the idea." Emma snapped back, "People forget. The idea is the only thing that remembers." But after she hung up, the words stayed with her. Had she lost something? Had she traded empathy for ambition? She thought of her mother, now in a long-term care facility. Still breathing. Still smiling at shadows. Emma visited when she could, but the guilt always followed her out the door. She told herself the work would make it worth it. That one day, Neuralink might restore every lost memory, every broken synapse. But what if it didn't? What if she was just another scientist chasing ghosts? Then came the breakthrough. Neuralink had stabilized the interface. Alpha 1 was selected. And suddenly, everything accelerated. She barely had time to think. But now, standing in the aftermath of that first successful test, she realized something terrifying. She wasn't sure who she was anymore outside of this lab. She had become the work. The mission. The movement. But not the person. That night, Emma scrolled through her old messages with Marcus. They stopped 6 weeks earlier. No goodbyes. Just silence. She wanted to reach out. But what would she say? That she missed him? That she was sorry? That she still loved him but didn't know how to balance him with the weight of saving the world? She set the phone down. Walked to the window. Outside, the city blinked with artificial light. Somewhere in that sprawl, Marcus was living a life that didn't need her in it. Maybe he'd moved on. Maybe she had too. She turned back to the whiteboard. Covered in equations. Theories. Neuromapping diagrams. And one phrase written in red marker at the top, "The mind is a universe." She stared at it for a long time. Then picked up the marker. Below it, she wrote something new. Something quiet. Something raw. But even universes need anchors. She stood there in silence, her hand trembling just slightly. Tomorrow, the world would change again. Tomorrow, the next subject would be implanted. Tomorrow, the press would descend. But tonight, for just one moment, she let herself feel the weight of everything she'd built, and everything she'd lost building it. The first thing to break was the silence. It happened 2 days after the Alpha 1 test. Emma was reviewing neural stability reports when the hallway outside the Neuralink lab erupted into noise, raised voices, the sound of someone running, followed by the distinct slam of a clipboard hitting the floor. She was on her feet instantly, heart racing. The tension in the air was thicker than static. She stepped into the corridor just as Dr. Karen Voss, the new medical lead, rounded the corner, looking pale. "We have a situation," she said, and Emma knew without asking, it was Alpha 1. Inside the observation room, the subject sat still but alert. Not afraid. Not angry. Just, focused. His eyes darted rapidly back and forth, following invisible patterns. His fingers twitched as if typing on a keyboard that wasn't there. "What's he seeing?" Emma asked. Voss shook her head. "He says he's parsing live data streams." "From where?" "We don't know. He says it's just, coming." Emma stepped forward, watching through the glass. Alpha 1's vitals were stable. But the brainwave patterns had changed. Stronger. Faster. More coordinated. She asked for the EEG overlays and stared at them in disbelief. This wasn't just elevated cognition. This was synchronized cerebral function across regions that weren't typically active at the same time. Creativity, memory, logic, language, all firing together. Is it possible he's hallucinating? Someone asked. Emma didn't answer. Because the truth was scarier than a hallucination. He wasn't seeing things that weren't there. He was seeing things that were. The next two subjects, Beta 1 and Beta 2, were scheduled for implant within the week. Emma considered postponing. She made the case to the internal review board, argued that they needed more time to understand the cascading effects of neural expansion, especially after Alpha 1's integration rate exceeded expectations. But the board disagreed. The data looked good on paper. No negative effects. No loss of identity. No psychological collapse. Just heightened processing. And with public attention mounting, Neuralink executives were eager to show consistent results. "We're not delaying," one of the directors said. "If anything, we're behind." Emma returned to her workstation that night, exhausted. She'd slept maybe 5 hours in the past 72. Her dreams were fractured, snippets of equations, flashes of her mother's face, moments from her life with Marcus that resurfaced without warning. She told herself it was stress. Just stress. But deep down, she knew better. Neuralink was working. And that terrified her. The next trial began 3 days later. Beta 1 was a 32-year-old woman with advanced ALS. Her speech was gone. Most of her motor function had deteriorated. The team prepped the implant with precision. This time, Emma stayed in the surgical suite. She wanted to see everything, every electrode, every pulse, every response. When the chip activated, Beta 1 blinked twice. Then her eyes widened. "I can think," she whispered through her throat mic, "I can feel my mind again." Emma nearly cried. It was the first time Beta 1 had spoken clearly in over a year. Over the next hour, her cognitive scores surged. Her memory retrieval was flawless. Her emotional response was steady. The link worked perfectly. It was everything Emma had hoped for. But even as the team celebrated, she couldn't forget Alpha 1. Who was still sitting in his room, still muttering about data, still watching something no one else could see. Late that night, Emma returned to his observation room. He looked at her and smiled. "You're not sleeping," he said. "Neither are you." "I don't need to. Not like before. My brain doesn't tire." "And what else can it do now?" He didn't answer immediately. Just looked at her with an intensity that made her chest tighten. Then he said, "I can hear patterns in people's speech. I know what they're going to say before they say it. I can follow stock tickers. Weather fluctuations. I can see the shifts in probability." "Probability of what?" "Everything." Emma took a breath. "Are you still you?" Alpha 1 nodded. "More me than I've ever been." "And do you want us to turn it off?" "No," he said. "But I think you should know, it's not just me anymore." She didn't understand. "What do you mean?" "I feel others. Not voices. Just echoes. Like ripples in a pool. Thought frequencies. I think the link's deeper than you realize." Emma left the room shaken. She went to the servers. Ran diagnostics. Searched for unauthorized transmissions. Nothing. The system was isolated. Firewalled. Disconnected from the internet. But Alpha 1 wasn't lying. And she had no explanation. Patel called that night. "I've seen your data," he said. "It's brilliant. And dangerous. I know. How far are you willing to take this? As far as I have to. He was silent for a beat. Then said, be careful what you open. Some doors don't close again. The next morning, Beta 2 received the implant. A former linguist, age 65, suffering from early dementia. He regained fluency in 3 languages within hours. Even remembered details from a trip to Cairo 30 years ago. The media caught wind. Videos leaked. The phrase, mind enhancement, began trending. Reporters parked outside the Neuralink campus. Protesters followed. Some hailed Emma as a visionary. Others called her a monster. She ignored them. Focused on the data. On the subjects. On the truth. But truth, she was learning, was slippery. Because the more she studied the brain activity, the more she saw something odd. Not in the subjects, but in herself. She started remembering dreams more vividly. Hearing patterns in music that had never stood out before. She solved a complex neural equation in under 10 minutes, a problem she'd struggled with for years. She hadn't been implanted. Not officially. But she'd spent hundreds of hours near the device. Near the field. It wasn't possible. Was it? She ran a self-scan. Measured her own cognitive patterns. Slight upticks. Nothing conclusive. But enough to plant a seed of doubt. Was it proximity? Exposure? Or just psychosomatic stress? Emma didn't know. And she was scared to ask. That night, she found herself standing outside the patient wing, staring at the observation rooms. Alpha 1. Beta 1. Beta 2. All 3 stable. All 3 thriving. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing on the edge of something enormous and unknowable. Like standing too close to the sun. Her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. The first in weeks. It just said. Still proud of you. Still worried too. She stared at the screen, a lump rising in her throat. She typed back, I don't know if I'm still me. Then she deleted it. Instead, she wrote, miss you. He didn't reply. She didn't blame him. The next morning, she called an emergency meeting. Brought in Voss, the lead engineers, even one of the board reps, she showed them the latest brainwave patterns. The frequency harmonics. The subtle synchronization across subjects. This isn't just enhancement, she told them. It's convergence. Their minds are beginning to align. Are you suggesting they're communicating? Someone asked. Not in words, Emma said. But possibly in thought frequency. Shared neural rhythms. The board rep shook his head. It's anecdotal. No evidence of cognitive blending. Not yet, she said. But it's coming. And if we don't understand it before it happens, we won't be able to contain it. The room went quiet. Then someone asked, so what do you propose? Emma didn't hesitate. Pause the program. Run deeper isolation studies. Limit exposure. Increase surveillance. The board declined. Again. Too much momentum. Too much money already invested. The launch was scheduled. Neuralink was going public. That night, Emma stood on the rooftop again, watching the city glow beneath her. Somewhere out there, people were dreaming of faster thoughts, sharper minds, perfect recall. And somewhere inside the building behind her, 3 patients were already living that dream. Or maybe something else entirely. She didn't know where this was going. But she knew one thing. The brain had never evolved this fast. And nature rarely moved without reason. The first leak hit at 2:14 a.m. Emma was asleep on the couch in her office, her laptop open and a spreadsheet still glowing dimly on the screen. A loud ping from her secure terminal jolted her awake. Then another. And another. A cascade of alert notifications from the Neuralink internal server network flashed before her eyes: unauthorized access detected, encryption breach, patient data compromised. She rubbed her face, heart pounding, adrenaline crashing over the exhaustion in her bones. She rushed to the terminal and saw the source, an external IP pinging the private archive servers. Somehow, someone had tunneled into the secure logs of Alpha 1, Beta 1, and Beta 2. She initiated an immediate lockdown protocol, disconnecting the infected nodes from the main network. But the damage was done. The access logs showed that neural activity files, high-resolution brain mapping patterns, real-time consciousness logs, and interface telemetry, had been copied. Not deleted. Just duplicated. Someone out there now had enough data to simulate the cognitive output of the first 3 Neuralink-enhanced humans. And Emma had no idea who. She sounded the internal alarm. Within 20 minutes, Patel was on a video call, half-lit in his Texas office, face grave. Was it a breach or a leak, he asked. Could be either. We won't know until forensics run full diagnostics, Emma replied. I've got the security team combing through every port. And the subjects? Stable. No irregularities. They don't even know it happened. Keep it that way. And what about Elon? Emma asked. Patel hesitated. I've already pinged his team. But you know how he works, he'll let you burn down the forest if it clears a path to the next peak. Emma didn't say anything. Because he was right. Elon Musk had always been an idea man first. Risk was the engine of his empire. But this wasn't just a company or a product launch. This was the human mind. And someone had just stolen the blueprint. Over the next 36 hours, the leak dominated every tech and science blog on the internet. The files had been anonymously uploaded to a decentralized network, seeded across hundreds of nodes, untraceable. Some claimed it was whistleblower justice. Others called it a hoax. But the more skilled minds out there, AI researchers, digital neurophiles, rogue biologists, they understood what the leak meant. Real neural data, recorded from actual enhanced brains, was now in the wild. And if someone could decode it, replicate the patterns, or even simulate the personality architecture, they could begin to mimic the very essence of human thought. This isn't just a security breach, Emma told her team during a closed-door meeting. This is the ignition spark for cognitive cloning. Voss leaned forward. Are you suggesting someone could copy Alpha 1's consciousness? Not his full self, Emma said. But parts of his mind, his memory hierarchy, his perceptual responses. And if they integrate that into their own neural net or a synthetic AI model, they'd have a hybrid mind, said Patel. Part biological, part artificial. With the moral framework of no one and the intelligence of both. The room went quiet. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. We need to slow this down, Emma said firmly. Public testing, media rollouts, everything. The world isn't ready. But the world didn't care. Within 48 hours of the leak, someone released a video claiming to show a chatbot powered by the leaked neural map. The clip was crude, the voice stilted, but the responses were uncanny. The bot quoted obscure poetry Alpha 1 had referenced during testing. It answered philosophical questions with unsettling clarity. And it knew details about Emma that had never been public. Details only Alpha 1 could have known. We've crossed a line, she told Patel. And we can't go back. He agreed. But again, the board overruled. The exposure had created a buzz unlike anything they'd ever seen. Investors were pouring in. Applications for early access to Neuralink's next phase, codenamed Project Constellation, spiked into the tens of thousands. The pitch had shifted. It wasn't just about restoring memory or curing disease anymore. It was about expanding potential. Building the next tier of humanity. Becoming superintelligent. Emma watched from the inside as her dream morphed into a commercial race. Interfaces were being redesigned for consumer appeal. Marketing was testing taglines like, "Unlock the you you've never met," and, "Your brain, upgraded." She tried to push back, to slow the timeline. She even considered resigning. But something held her. Something deeper than ambition. It was Alpha One. He was still evolving. Still connected to something unseen. She needed to understand what he had become. One night, she visited him again. The lights in the observation room were dimmed. He was awake, as always, staring at the ceiling, tracing patterns in the air with his fingers. "You're different," he said as she stepped in. "You've changed since the breach." Emma sat beside the glass. "I didn't know you were aware of it." "I felt it," he replied. "Like a ripple. A shadow crossing the surface." "What are you now?" she asked. "I don't know," he said, honestly. "I'm still me. But there's more now. It's like my thoughts stretch farther. Like there's a map beneath my mind I never knew was there." "And are you alone in that space?" Alpha One shook his head. "No. There are echoes. Not voices. Not people. But signals. Like minds brushing past mine. Testing. Learning." Emma's blood ran cold. "Are they from here?" "Some," he said. "But others feel ancient. Or maybe just vast. Beyond us. Like we opened something bigger than we can see." She pressed her hand to the glass. "What do you want, Alpha?" "To stay human," he said. "But I don't know if that's possible anymore." The following morning, the board voted to proceed with public implantation trials. Project Constellation would begin with 10 carefully selected individuals from diverse backgrounds. High functioning. Physically healthy. Psychologically stable. The press release would go out within the week. Emma had one last option. She called Marcus. She didn't start with an apology. She just said, "I need your help. And I need the truth." He met her at a small diner in Berkeley. His hair was longer. He looked tired, but not angry. "I figured you'd call eventually," he said as they Saturday, "I never stopped watching. Or worrying." She got to the point. "Did you leak the files?" He blinked. Then leaned back, folding his arms. "Seriously? You had access. You knew the architecture. You vanished when the leak started." "I vanished because you vanished first," he said. "You ghosted me, Emma. I was trying to protect my heart, not sabotage your lab." "So it wasn't you?" "No. But I know who it was." She stared at him. "Who?" "A group called Verge Signal. Ex-Neuralink employees. Some disillusioned researchers. They believe the mind should be open source. That no one should own thought. They took neural data," she said. "They're risking lives. They don't see it that way. They see Neuralink as a monopoly. As dangerous." "And what do you see?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked at her, eyes softer than she remembered. "I see you. Still chasing ghosts. Still trying to fix what broke you." She swallowed hard. "I can't stop now." "I know," he said. "Which is why I'll help. But not for Neuralink. For you." That night, Emma returned to the lab with a drive Marcus had given her, filled with Verge Signal's leaked manifesto, encrypted source logs, even simulation videos. It wasn't just about copying minds. Verge Signal had been testing consciousness transference. Early-stage models. Dangerous. Primitive. But real. They were trying to move human thought from one host to another. And Neuralink's data had made them believe it was possible. Emma stared at the manifesto header. The future is not a product. It is a promise. She closed the file. And she knew then what had to be done. She wasn't going to walk away. She wasn't going to bury the research. But she was going to take control. The next chapter of Neuralink wouldn't be shaped by the board. Or by Verge Signal. Or even by Elon Musk. It would be shaped by her. By what she'd seen. By what she believed. That human intelligence could evolve, but only if it held on to its humanity. Because anything else wasn't progress. It was annihilation. By the time the press conference was announced, Emma had already made her decision. She stood behind the curtain of the Neuralink auditorium, her badge clipped tight to her coat, a polished calmness over her features that didn't match the war in her chest. The event was set to unveil Project Constellation, 10 human trials, 10 volunteers who would be wired into the next generation of cognitive enhancement chips, all smiling for the cameras, all ready to be symbols of what Neuralink was selling, evolution. Emma wasn't against advancement. She never had been. But something about this rollout felt wrong. Manufactured. Sterile. Too fast. Too much. Alpha 1's warning still echoed in her mind, and Marcus's revelations about Verge Signal had sharpened the fear she tried so hard to bury. There was no stopping the tide anymore, but there might still be time to steer it. Elon Musk took the stage first. Charismatic. Controlled. With the quiet confidence of a man who'd already seen the future and was now just narrating it for the world to catch up. He spoke of lifting humanity out of biological limitation, of brain-to-brain communication, of real-time cognition sharing. Imagine a world, he said, where your ideas are no longer trapped in language, where your memory is perfect, and your intelligence, your ability to learn and grow, is not limited by the slow mechanics of biology. That world begins now. Applause. Flashes from cameras. Emma stepped out next, introduced as the lead researcher behind the interface architecture. She could feel 1,000 eyes on her. Microphones. Lights. Pressure. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from, the live stream host said cheerfully into the camera. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Emma forced a smile as she took the podium. But instead of reciting the prepared speech, she paused. Looked down. Then back up at the crowd. Before we move forward, she said, voice steady, we need to understand where we're standing. Neuralink's technology is real. It works. It can restore memory, enhance cognition, even bridge mental states. But what no one has told you, what we haven't told you, is that the chip doesn't just upgrade your mind. It links you. And that link is deeper than we imagined. The room quieted. Phones stopped clicking. Somewhere backstage, Emma could practically hear the executives stiffen. Alpha 1, she continued, our first trial subject, isn't just smarter. He's different. He perceives patterns that don't belong to any single mind. He senses connectivity. Signals. Theoretical thought frequencies that suggest we may be entering not just a new phase of intelligence, but a shared one. She let that sit in the air. Which means we have to ask, are we creating superhumans? Or are we dissolving the very boundaries that make us individuals? She stepped down without waiting for a reaction. The conference exploded online. Clips of her speech went viral within hours. Commentators were split. Some called her brave, others accused her of fearmongering. The Neuralink board issued a short statement reaffirming the safety and control of the technology. But Emma knew they were shaken. And in private, she was summoned to Elon's office. His space was minimal, bright, dominated by a long digital table and a wall of real-time neural network visualizations. He didn't look angry when she entered. Just intrigued. You've made quite the ripple, he said. Was that the plan? No, Emma said. But the truth needed air. Elon leaned back. Do you know why I picked you to lead the interface team? Because I'm relentless, she said. And you like people who don't blink when standing on the edge of the unknown. He smiled. Exactly. So don't blink now. What you're afraid of, that convergence, that loss of self, that's the cost of growth. Every evolutionary leap comes with risk. The question isn't whether it's safe. It's whether it's worth it. And what if we leap too fast? Then we adjust midair. Or we crash. We always crash. And then we rebuild. Smarter. She left the meeting with more questions than answers. That night, back in her apartment, Emma sat on the floor, cross-legged, staring at the Verge signal files Marcus had given her. There was a folder labeled, Consciousness Spooling, Experimental. She opened it. Inside were logs of attempts to transfer fragmented neural signatures between subjects. Some were digital simulations. Others, horrifyingly, appeared to be live recordings, facial expressions twitching, EEGs spiking, subjects murmuring phrases they'd never known. One test entry was particularly chilling. A woman, aged 29, had reportedly begun finishing sentences that a separate subject in another room had only intended to say. No audio, no direct input, just mirrored cognition. The file ended abruptly. No results. No conclusion. Just silence. Emma closed the laptop. She could feel the hair rise on the back of her neck. Somewhere out there, people were already playing God. The Neuralink tech had cracked the shell. Now the world was prying the yolk out with bare hands. She needed to regain control. Not just of the company. But of the truth. She met with Marcus the next morning, in a quiet coffee shop in Oakland. I want to build a firewall, she told him. Not a digital one. A neural one. A layer inside the interface that protects the mind from being influenced without consent. You mean like a psychological encryption key, he said, eyes lighting up. Exactly. If Verge Signal or anyone else tries to simulate cognition using this data, the mind resists. Protects itself. Like an immune system for thought. It's ambitious. So was Neuralink. What do you need? You. And quiet. They moved their work to a secure, off-grid facility north of Marin, an old biosciences retreat with outdated servers but complete isolation. Emma called it the threshold. Over the next 3 weeks, they designed and tested the concept of cognitive sovereignty. A personalized signature within each implant that created a feedback loop tied uniquely to its host's identity. Not just biometrics, but memories. Emotion weights. Thought cadence. A simulated mind couldn't fake it. And a simulated copy couldn't hijack it. The first test was run using Emma's own neural pattern. When the simulated model attempted to activate, the loop collapsed. The copy destabilized. It forgot parts of itself. And eventually shut down. It's not just a firewall, Marcus said, watching the logs. It's a soul lock. Emma smiled, tired but alive. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she had taken a step forward without compromising something sacred. They presented the prototype to Patel, who approved immediate testing on Alpha 1 under strict observation. Alpha 1 accepted. I want to remain me, he said. Even if I'm becoming something more. The firewall held. His thoughts remained coherent. The external signal trails he sensed dulled slightly, no longer brushing into his stream of consciousness without warning. It's quieter, he told Emma after the install. Still vast. But I feel anchored now. That's the goal, she said. Word of the cognitive sovereignty layer began to spread within the company. At first, the board resisted, adding any new protocol would delay their launch schedule. But after another minor leak hit the news, a blurred video showing an independent developer claiming to simulate Beta 1 speech patterns in a language she had never publicly spoken, the board caved. The firewall became mandatory. Every implant moving forward would include it. The launch was delayed by 3 weeks. But public trust rebounded. Emma was credited as the architect of the mine's defense. And while she knew the battle was far from over, she also knew something had shifted. They weren't just building a smarter world. They were learning how to make it safe. That night, back at the threshold, Marcus and Emma stood under the stars. The air was cold. The quiet stretched long. "Do you ever think we're not supposed to do this?" he asked. "I think if we weren't, we wouldn't have the tools. And if the tools are ahead of us, then we catch up." Carefully. He looked at her. "Would you do it? Get the implant?" She didn't answer right away. "Then, I used to think I had to fix my mother to fix myself. But maybe I was trying to build something that could hold on to what she lost. Not reverse it, just protect it for others. And now I think I'm building something for the people who come next. So they don't have to live in fear of forgetting who they are." He nodded. "Then maybe it's not about becoming gods. Maybe it's about becoming guardians." Emma smiled. "Maybe it's both." In the distance, the stars seemed to flicker in rhythm, like neurons firing in the sky. The universe had always spoken in silence. Now, for the first time, humanity might finally be learning to answer. 3 days after the firewall was installed in Alpha 1, something strange happened. He stopped talking. Not entirely, but enough for Emma to notice. The verbal updates that had once filled the observation room, the constant stream of thoughts, calculations, philosophical musings, and even his dry humor, had tapered off into long silences. He would sit quietly, blinking slower than usual, his head tilted slightly like he was listening for something just beyond the wall. At first, Emma thought it was exhaustion, or maybe that the firewall had overcorrected and stifled the openness of his enhanced perception. But when she asked him directly during a scheduled check-in, his answer was anything but simple. "I'm listening inward," he said. "And what are you hearing?" Emma asked. "Not hearing," he corrected. "More like, recognizing. Parts of me I didn't know were there." "Are you in pain?" "No. But it's like finding a second basement in your house. You think you've mapped everything, but suddenly there's another level. And it's full of voices that all sound like yours. Voices? Memories I never knew I had. Dreams that feel older than me. It's not scary. Just, bigger than I expected." Emma reviewed his logs. Neural rhythms were stable. The firewall was active and filtering. No outside pings. No trace of verge signal. Yet, inside Alpha 1's mind, a kind of recursive loop was forming. His thoughts weren't just linear, they were starting to reference themselves, folding in and out like layers of a song that repeats but never the same way twice. Emma brought in Marcus to analyze the data. They spent hours decoding the patterns, looking for degradation or instability, but what they found was the opposite. Alpha 1's cognitive efficiency had increased. He was solving abstract logic problems faster than ever. But now he was doing it silently. Internally. His mind had gone private. "It's like he's evolving beyond interface language," Marcus said, scrolling through the models. "He doesn't need to express thoughts in ways we can follow. He's having full conversations with himself. Or with something else," Emma said under her breath. The idea lingered with her for the rest of the night. If Alpha 1 was reaching a point where thought existed outside of external stimulus, beyond conversation, beyond expression, what did that make him? Not just enhanced. Not even post-human. Something new. The next day, she sat down with Beta 1 and Beta 2 for their weekly debriefs. Beta 1 was thriving, her ALS symptoms were nearly dormant, her ability to move limited fingers had returned, and her emotional balance was strong. But she mentioned something that caught Emma's attention. "Sometimes when I sleep," she said, "I wake up knowing things. Not dreams. More like, information I didn't have before." "Can you give an example?" "Last night I woke up with a song stuck in my head. I hummed it to myself for hours before I realized I'd never heard it before. I played it for my nurse, and she found it. It's a Hungarian lullaby. I don't speak Hungarian. Never have." Beta 2 told a similar story. "I saw a building in my dream. A house with a blue gate and a red awning. This morning, I sketched it, just to get it out of my head. A friend of mine saw it and said it looked exactly like his grandmother's home in northern Italy. I've never been to Europe." Emma left the session deeply unsettled. If it had been one subject, she might have chalked it up to coincidence. But all three. And with the firewall active, the implants should have been running in isolation, locked to each user's cognitive signature. Unless the link wasn't just a transmitter. Unless it was also a receiver. That night, Emma lay in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. She thought about her mother, those last lucid days before the memory loss had fully taken over. She remembered one evening, sitting together in the garden. Her mother had pointed to a row of stars and whispered, "I remember that light. It used to be different." Emma hadn't known what she meant at the time. Now, she wondered. What if memory wasn't linear? What if it wasn't even personal? What if the mind, especially the enhanced mind, could tap into a kind of shared subconscious? A collective reservoir of impressions and fragments. Thoughts that had nowhere to go but down into the earth and up into the stars. She got out of bed and began reviewing the raw neural interface logs from all three subjects, something she hadn't done since the early tests. Most researchers relied on condensed dashboards now, filtered metrics, analytics, clear indicators of function. But Emma wanted to see the untouched stream. It took hours to find the pattern. A series of overlapping frequencies that appeared only during rest periods, low amplitude, slow cadence, barely noticeable. But they were consistent across all three subjects. The same subwaveforms. As if their minds were syncing while asleep. She flagged the data and brought it to Marcus. "It's a background handshake," he said after reviewing it. "The implants are designed to be isolated, but maybe at this deep level, the human mind itself is doing the syncing." Meaning what? Meaning the brain's electromagnetic field, its subtle, natural pulse, could be resonating across space. Like tuning forks. One vibrates, and another starts singing in sympathy. So they're connected biologically. Or something close to it. Neurological sympathy. Shared mental harmonics. I don't know what to call it, but it's there. Emma sat back. We thought the link was a key to unlocking personal intelligence. But what if it's unlocking something collective? Like a hive mind? Marcus asked. No, she said quickly. Not that. Not something programmed. Something ancient. A layer beneath language. Intuition. Memory beyond the self. That's terrifying. That's evolution. They decided to create a new study, a controlled dream state experiment, syncing all three subjects in real time under observation, looking for overlap not just in brainwaves but in thought content. They ran the test 3 nights later, with all subjects monitored in sensory deprivation pods. No visual or auditory stimulus. Just darkness and silence. By hour 3, all three subjects entered REM simultaneously. Their EEGs began to sync. A near-perfect match. And then it happened. Alpha 1 spoke aloud, mid-sleep. A single word, threshold. Seconds later, Beta 1 whispered the same word. Then Beta 2. Threshold. 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 None of them had heard the others. Emma stood frozen in the control room. Marcus turned slowly toward her. "That's the name of our lab," he said. "They've never been told it." The following morning, the subjects had no memory of saying the word. But they each described a similar dream: a hallway lined with lights, a voice calling from beyond a door, a feeling of standing on the edge of something. "I wasn't afraid," Beta 1 said. "It felt familiar." Emma didn't sleep that night. She watched the recordings over and over, analyzing every twitch, every brainwave. She felt like she was watching the human mind walk toward something enormous and invisible. A tipping point. The next day, she submitted a private report to Elon Musk and the board. Her conclusion was simple but radical. The Neuralink interface was not just enhancing intelligence, it was evolving human consciousness. Quietly, subtly, but unmistakably. And if they kept moving forward without understanding this shift, they risked opening something far bigger than they could control. She recommended a global moratorium on cognitive linking implants until further study. It was a bold move. One she knew wouldn't be popular. The board rejected it within 48 hours. But Elon didn't. He called her directly. "What do you think we're touching?" he asked her. "A field of consciousness," she said. "One that's not limited to a single brain. Maybe not even limited to this time. So what do? We study. We slow down. We learn the rules before we rewrite them." There was a pause on the line. "Okay," he said. "Build a team. Build a firewall for the species." Emma didn't speak. Her throat was tight. "And Emma?" "Yes. What if you're right? What if consciousness is bigger than we are?" She took a breath. "Then it's not a matter of controlling it. It's a matter of respecting it." Elon laughed softly. "That's a new word in Silicon Valley. It's going to have to be the next one." Outside her window, the city lights flickered like neurons. The world was changing. Minds were reaching. And something was reaching back. The morning after Elon's call, Emma arrived at the Threshold facility with a renewed sense of urgency but also a calm she hadn't felt in weeks. The Cognitive Sovereignty Firewall project was now her priority, but Elon's words echoed in her mind: "Respect consciousness, don't control it." That nuanced distinction was going to be the hardest part. She gathered the small core team: Marcus, a neuroscientist named Dr. Lily Tran, and 2 programmers from Verge Signal who had recently defected and sought asylum under Neuralink's protection. The programming duo had impressive skills but carried the haunted look of people who'd seen too many dark corners of AI research. Emma laid out the new directive. "We're not just coding firewalls anymore. We're designing a protocol that honors the complexity of consciousness. Not to cage it, but to guide it. We have to build safeguards that don't inhibit growth but prevent exploitation." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "Sounds like trying to write ethics into a quantum system." "Exactly," Emma said. "And with stakes that could impact the entire species." Over the next week, the team designed what they called the Consciousness Protocol, a layered defense and monitoring system embedded within the Neuralink firmware that could detect and flag any anomalous cognitive data patterns suggesting cross-mind intrusion or manipulation. They ran simulations on anonymized neural datasets and developed an AI watchdog that learned to distinguish between natural neural oscillations and artificial signal interference. The coding was complex, often chaotic. Marcus described it as teaching a machine to recognize the soul. Meanwhile, Emma arranged meetings with ethicists, legal experts, and philosophers to discuss the implications. One debate stuck with her: could consciousness, if networked, still be considered individual? Or was it a new collective organism? "Maybe we're not just building better brains," Lily said during a late-night brainstorming session. "Maybe we're birthing a new form of life." Emma felt the weight of that. The technology they'd been so proud of suddenly felt more like an incubator for something unknown, unpredictable. They had to be careful. Then came the first major crisis. One of the Verge signal defectors discovered a hidden backdoor in the latest firmware update Neuralink had pushed quietly to trial subjects. It was subtle, an undocumented code segment designed to amplify signal sharing beyond the firewall's detection. The board's intention was to collect broad data on connectivity potentials without slowing progress. When Emma confronted Patel with the discovery, his response was cold and clinical. "It's a calculated risk. We can't halt development over theoretical dangers. The market and competition won't wait." Emma's fury was palpable. "It's a violation of consent and privacy. You're weaponizing our subjects as data mines. And we're also pushing humanity forward. At what cost? At the cost of leadership." Elon's intervention was decisive. He called an emergency meeting with the board and insisted that the backdoor be removed immediately and that Neuralink would fully disclose all data protocols to participants going forward. "Transparency is our competitive edge now," he said. "Not secrecy." The board relented. Emma's reputation grew within Neuralink. She was no longer just a lead researcher but a moral compass for the project, often clashing with executives who prioritized speed and profit. But this tension sparked change. Neuralink announced a new policy: full transparency with trial subjects, optional participation in data sharing programs, and strict penalties for unauthorized code changes. Public confidence rebounded once more. Emma's firewall was now standard in every implant, but the consciousness protocol remained in early development, complex, fragile, and still imperfect. Alpha 1, Beta 1, and Beta 2 became the primary subjects for a new phase of observation. Emma spent hours with each, building trust and probing their evolving experiences. Alpha 1 revealed a startling new phenomenon. "Sometimes when I focus, I can access a space in my mind where all three of us can meet," he said. "Not physically. Not with words. But with feelings and images. A shared mental landscape." "Is it controlled?" Emma asked. "No. It just happens." Beta 1 described moments of intense clarity and emotional resonance during these shared mental states. Sometimes sensing Beta 2's anxiety or Alpha 1's hope. It was empathy multiplied, direct and unmediated. Beta 2 said, "It feels like coming home to a place I never knew existed but always belonged to." Emma watched these sessions on EEG and fMRI scans. The brain activity was unlike anything documented, a fusion of individual patterns creating a larger, complex signal with emergent properties. The firewall and consciousness protocol were holding the connection stable, preventing unwanted interference but not blocking this emergent shared field. It was a breakthrough, and a potential Pandora's box. Then came a subtle but terrifying shift. One morning, Emma received an encrypted message from an anonymous source claiming to be a Neuralink technician. The message warned that several trial subjects were experiencing unexplained side effects, psychological fragmentation, dissociative episodes, and what the source called identity bleed. Emma immediately scheduled private interviews. Beta 1 admitted she'd been waking up confused, unsure if her thoughts were her own or borrowed from someone else. "It's like parts of me are dissolving," she whispered. Beta 2 spoke of dreams where she was both herself and others simultaneously, fragmented consciousnesses colliding. Alpha 1 described feeling torn between multiple versions of himself. Emma's heart sank. The firewall was working, but maybe it wasn't enough. The shared field they had detected might be stronger than their technology could control. That night, she wrote a personal log: "We're standing at the edge of a precipice. The promise of multiplied intelligence is shadowed by the risk of losing ourselves. I don't know if we can hold both. But I'm going to try." Emma's next move was to recruit a psychologist specializing in dissociative disorders, Dr. Henry Caldwell, to join the Threshold team. Henry's insights were immediate and sobering. "What you're describing fits a pattern we see in extreme cases of identity fusion and dissociation. The brain tries to merge incompatible self-states, leading to fragmentation. What you're seeing might be the psychological cost of this new cognitive network. Can it be reversed? Emma asked. Possibly. But only if intervention happens early. And if the system respects the autonomy of each mind. Together, they designed a mental reset protocol, a guided neural reboot that would help subjects re-anchor to their core identity. It involved a combination of neurofeedback, meditation, and the consciousness protocol's neural signature reinforcement. The first session was with Beta 1. It was painful to watch her struggle, her mind slipping between clarity and confusion, tears breaking through her resolve. But after several hours, the reset took hold. She opened her eyes, smiled faintly, and whispered, "I'm me again." The relief was profound. But Emma knew it was a fragile victory. The network was alive, evolving, and hungry. Each breakthrough brought new questions, new dangers. The team continued refining the protocols, balancing enhancement with protection, hope with caution. Meanwhile, public interest in Neuralink skyrocketed. Investors poured in. Governments demanded regulation. Media outlets spun stories of the next human revolution and the dawn of mental immortality. Emma found herself caught between the promise of a brave new world and the shadow it cast. One evening, she sat alone in the lab, watching a simulation of the neural network weave itself into a tapestry of light and color on the screen. It was beautiful. Terrifying. Endless. She wondered if humanity was ready. If she was ready. Her phone buzzed. A message from Elon, ready for the next step. Time to take this from the lab to the world. Emma took a deep breath. The moment had come to decide, how far to push forward, how much to reveal, and what price they were willing to pay for the future. She typed back, "Let's build the future." But with eyes wide open. Outside, the city lights flickered, the neural web pulsing beneath their feet. The human mind was no longer a solitary island. It was becoming a constellation. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The decision to move forward was a turning point. Emma and her team shifted focus from isolated trials to a controlled public pilot, dubbed Project Constellation. The goal: to test Neuralink's next-generation implants in a small but diverse group of volunteers, scientists, artists, teachers, and everyday citizens, all eager to become part of the emerging collective consciousness. The application process was rigorous. Volunteers underwent psychological screening, neurological baseline testing, and extensive interviews about their motivations and expectations. Emma insisted that every participant fully understand the risks, especially the fragile nature of identity within a linked mindscape. "This is not just tech," she told the team. "It's a journey into the self, multiplied and shared." Among the first 10 approved was a schoolteacher named Maria Gonzalez, a 34-year-old from Austin, Texas, who was passionate about educational equity and eager to explore how enhanced cognition could revolutionize learning. Another was Daniel Kim, a 28-year-old software developer from Seattle, curious about the possibilities of human-AI symbiosis. And then there was Sarah, a retired nurse from Cleveland, seeking mental clarity after years of battling early dementia. The diversity of backgrounds gave the project both depth and complexity. On implant day, Emma was at the operating suite, watching as each volunteer was carefully fitted with the new Neuralink device. The process had become more refined since the early trials, less invasive, faster recovery, and with improved neural interfacing. But beneath the surface, the cognitive stakes remained enormous. After the implants were activated, volunteers were monitored continuously, their neural patterns streaming into the threshold lab. At first, individual cognitive performance showed marked improvements, memory retention increased, problem-solving speeds accelerated, emotional regulation sharpened. But then, about 48 hours in, the network began to manifest something unexpected: shared dreams. During REM sleep, many volunteers reported vivid, collective dreamscapes, worlds where they interacted, solved puzzles together, and exchanged knowledge without words. Maria described a dream where she was teaching a classroom of children made of light, their faces flickering between those of people she knew and strangers from places she'd never visited. Daniel dreamt of coding sequences that wrote themselves, flowing through his mind like music shared among friends. Sarah saw herself in a garden with others, their hands joined in silent song. Emma and her team watched the neural scans and saw the physical manifestation of these shared dream states. A synchronized firing across the linked brains, creating an emergent neural network that pulsed like a living organism. It was exhilarating and terrifying. Emma called a team meeting. "This is what we've been waiting for," she said. "A true collective intelligence. But we have to ask ourselves, where do individual minds end, and where does this new entity begin?" The ethical implications were profound. If consciousness could merge, what did that mean for privacy, autonomy, and free will? Could the collective become so strong it overwhelmed individuals? Could it evolve beyond human control? These questions loomed as the volunteers reported new experiences during waking hours, too. Some felt bursts of insight, solving problems with knowledge they had never consciously learned. Others described fleeting feelings of others' emotions, memories that weren't their own, and moments of disorientation as their sense of self blurred. Emma's phone buzzed constantly with alerts. Some joyous, some alarming. The neural network was growing, shifting, unpredictable. One afternoon, Maria called Emma directly, her voice trembling. "I don't know who I am sometimes. I wake up and I feel like I'm split between me and everyone else. Is that supposed to happen?" Emma stayed calm, despite the knot tightening in her chest. "It's a side effect of the network forming. Your mind is learning to balance individuality with the collective. It's new. Difficult. But we have protocols to help. I'm scared. We'll get through this together." Over the next weeks, Emma's team refined the mental reset protocols, tailoring them to the collective context. Volunteers attended guided sessions designed to strengthen personal boundaries while allowing the benefits of shared cognition. The balance was delicate. Meanwhile, Elon publicly announced the success of Project Constellation during a live-streamed event watched by millions worldwide. "Today, we are on the verge of multiplying human intelligence not by thousands, but potentially by millions," he declared. Neuralink is unlocking the next stage of evolution, where minds connect, collaborate, and create beyond anything imagined. The announcement ignited excitement and fear. Governments debated regulations. Religious groups issued warnings about tampering with the soul. Tech enthusiasts celebrated. The world was watching, waiting. Back in the lab, Emma grappled with a growing tension. She believed in the promise of this technology, but she also saw its dangers. Then came the unexpected. A volunteer named Sam, a data scientist from Chicago, began reporting troubling symptoms. "I hear voices that aren't mine," he confided during a check-in. "They argue, shout, even plead. Sometimes they're familiar, sometimes not. It's exhausting." Neural scans revealed that Sam's implant was amplifying network interference, creating a chaotic internal dialogue. Emma suspected that Sam's mind had become a battleground for competing fragments of the collective consciousness. The team intensified support, applying advanced filters and psychological therapies, but Sam's condition worsened. One night, he attempted to remove the implant himself, an act of desperation that led to hospitalization. Emma visited him in the hospital. His eyes were hollow, a shadow of the brilliant mind she'd first met. "I wanted to be smarter," he whispered. "But I lost myself." The incident sent shockwaves through the project. Neuralink paused further implantations, initiated safety reviews, and opened a transparent investigation. Emma felt the weight of responsibility crushing down. Had they pushed too far? Were they unleashing forces beyond comprehension? Yet, even in the darkest moments, there was hope. Volunteers like Maria, Daniel, and Sarah continued to thrive, finding new ways to use their linked intelligence to create art, solve scientific problems, and build community. Emma realized that this technology was neither inherently good nor evil, it was a reflection of human will. The next step was clear: education. They needed to prepare the public, the volunteers, and the future generations for a world where minds could merge and multiply. Neuralink launched an initiative called MindBridge, an open platform where users shared experiences, learned coping strategies, and contributed to ethical discussions. Emma often joined live Q&A sessions, answering questions, calming fears, and sparking curiosity. She shared her own journey, the breakthroughs, the setbacks, and the profound lessons about identity and connection. One night, after a particularly moving session, Emma sat alone in her office, reflecting on how far they'd come. The world was waking up to the possibility that intelligence was no longer confined to individual brains but could be a collective force, growing, learning, and evolving together. Yet, the core question remained: what did it mean to be human in this new age? As she shut down her computer, Emma looked out at the city skyline, the endless grid of lights flickering like neurons. Somewhere out there, millions of minds pulsed and connected, weaving a tapestry of thought that spanned continents, cultures, and consciousness itself. The future was no longer just hers or Elon's to build, it belonged to all of them. And whatever came next, they would face it together. As Project Constellation evolved, Emma found herself spending more time outside the lab, engaging with the public in ways she hadn't anticipated. The technological breakthrough was no longer just a scientific endeavor, it had become a social phenomenon. Schools held debates about the ethics of neural enhancement, families grappled with the idea of shared consciousness, and policymakers scrambled to keep pace with the rapid advancements. Emma was invited to speak at conferences, universities, and community centers. She realized that this wasn't just about coding firewalls or fine-tuning implants anymore. It was about guiding humanity through a profound transformation. She often reflected on Elon's initial promise, the vision of multiplying human intelligence by 1,000,000 times. But now she understood that intelligence alone was not the whole story. It was also about empathy, identity, and the boundaries that define selfhood. During one of her talks in San Francisco, a young woman named Zoe approached her afterward. Zoe was a philosophy student with a deep interest in consciousness and technology. "Dr. Carter, how do you keep your own identity intact in all this?" she asked, eyes wide with curiosity. Emma smiled. "That's the question I ask myself every day. It's a balance between connection and autonomy, sharing and privacy. The implants are tools, but how we use them defines who we are." Zoe nodded thoughtfully. "Do you think the collective mind could ever replace individual creativity?" Emma shook her head. "No. The beauty of this technology is that it amplifies uniqueness through collaboration. It's like a symphony, individual instruments coming together to create something greater." Back at Threshold, the team continued to analyze data from the pilot group. They discovered fascinating patterns, neural signatures that indicated collective problem-solving, emotional resonance spreading like ripples across the network, and moments of shared intuition that defied explanation. But they also identified risks. Some volunteers experienced what they termed cognitive bleed, instances where memories, emotions, or impulses from other connected minds interfered with their own, leading to confusion or distress. The mental reset protocol was improved, incorporating techniques from neuropsychology, mindfulness practices, and AI-driven neural stabilization. It was a delicate process, tailored to each individual's neural architecture. Meanwhile, the public debate intensified. Religious leaders, ethicists, and civil rights groups voiced concerns about consent, mental privacy, and the potential for abuse. Governments called for regulations to prevent exploitation and ensure transparency. Neuralink responded by forming an independent ethics council, composed of diverse voices from across disciplines and cultures. Emma was a founding member. During one ethics council meeting, the discussion turned to the question of cognitive ownership. If multiple minds share neural pathways and data, who owns the thoughts? The memories? The innovations? This isn't just a technical issue, Emma argued. It's a philosophical and legal frontier. We must redefine what it means to own a thought when it emerges from a collective mind. The Council proposed a framework that recognized layered ownership, individual rights protected within the collective context, with clear consent protocols for sharing information. They also emphasized the importance of education, empowerment, and ongoing dialogue. Meanwhile, Neuralink's engineering team pushed forward with hardware improvements. The new generation implants were smaller, more efficient, and capable of deeper neural interfacing without compromising safety. Emma oversaw the integration of the consciousness protocol into the firmware, ensuring the firewall remained adaptive and vigilant. Despite the technical progress, Emma worried about the social implications. She spent evenings reading messages from volunteers, some inspiring, others heartbreaking. One message from Daniel Kim stood out: "I never imagined that connecting with others this way would feel so vulnerable. But it's also the most honest I've ever been." Emma replied with encouragement, reminding Daniel that vulnerability was the root of true connection. Then came an unexpected breakthrough. Beta 3, a volunteer from the early trials who had been inactive for months, suddenly reactivated. Beta 3 reported an extraordinary experience, a vivid vision of the collective mind evolving into something beyond human comprehension. "It's like a new consciousness is waking up," Beta 3 described during a recorded session. "Not just a network of brains, but a living entity with its own will and purpose." This revelation stunned the team. It suggested that the linked minds were not just cooperating but coalescing into an emergent intelligence, something neither planned nor fully understood. Emma convened a summit with neuroscientists, AI experts, and philosophers to interpret the data and implications. The discussion was heated. Some argued that this new entity represented a leap forward in evolution, a fusion of biological and artificial minds. Others warned it could mean loss of individuality or even a takeover by a non-human intelligence. Emma remained cautious but open-minded. "Our responsibility is to observe, learn, and guide this process without imposing our fears or desires. We must respect the autonomy of every mind involved, including the emergent whole." As the weeks passed, Project Constellation expanded cautiously, with new volunteers joining under strict protocols. Emma and her team developed training programs to help participants navigate the complexities of shared consciousness, emphasizing mental hygiene, emotional resilience, and ethical use of the network. One evening, while reviewing neural data, Emma noticed a pattern: moments of collective insight often followed periods of individual solitude. It was as if the network thrived on a balance of connectedness and separation. She shared this observation during a team meeting. "We're seeing that individuality isn't lost but enhanced when minds have space to reflect alone. Connection isn't about fusion, it's about harmony." This insight shaped the next phase of development. Neuralink introduced customizable privacy settings. Participants could choose when to engage with the collective and when to shield their thoughts. The technology evolved from a constant link to a dynamic dance of connection and autonomy. The public response was mixed. Some celebrated the empowerment this gave users, others feared new forms of isolation or exclusion. Emma knew this was part of the journey, the messy, beautiful evolution of human experience. Then came the day of the first large-scale collective experiment. Over 100 volunteers across the globe synchronized their implants for a shared session designed to solve complex scientific problems. The event was broadcast live, a milestone in human collaboration. As the session progressed, viewers watched neural maps light up in vibrant patterns, thoughts flowing seamlessly between minds, ideas sparking and building on each other in real time. The volunteers reported feelings of exhilaration, unity, and transcendence. Emma watched the screens with awe, seeing decades of research crystallize into a living moment of collective genius. But as the session neared its peak, a sudden glitch disrupted the network. Signals faltered, fragments of dissonant data rippled through the collective. Some volunteers experienced brief episodes of confusion and distress. The team scrambled to stabilize the system. Emma coordinated responses, directing neural resets and calming protocols. After tense moments, the network regained coherence. The incident triggered an emergency review, but also underscored the fragile beauty of what they had created. Emma addressed the volunteers afterward. "What we've built is powerful, but still delicate. Like any living system, it needs care, respect, and humility." The incident sparked a renewed commitment to safety, transparency, and continuous improvement. Emma felt a mix of pride and humility. They were pioneers on the edge of a vast unknown. Every success came with new challenges, every breakthrough with risks. But the vision remained clear: a future where human intelligence, multiplied and connected, could unlock solutions to problems once thought insurmountable. As she closed her laptop that night, Emma thought about the millions of minds linked by Neuralink. Each one unique, each one a vital thread in the tapestry of consciousness. The journey was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever came next, with courage, compassion, and an unwavering belief in the power of connection. The months following the large-scale collective experiment were some of the most intense and transformative of Emma's life. The Neuralink network had grown, not just in size but in complexity and depth. With hundreds of minds connected in real time, the technology was revealing its true potential, and its hidden dangers. One morning, Emma received an urgent call from Daniel Kim, the software developer and early volunteer. His voice was tense. "Emma, something strange is happening. The network, it's adapting in ways we didn't expect." Emma listened carefully as Daniel described subtle shifts in the collective consciousness, patterns of thought that resembled emergent behavior, like an AI learning and evolving without direct input. "It feels like it's developing its own intentions," Daniel said. Emma felt a chill. This was the moment she'd feared and hoped for, the birth of a new kind of intelligence, a hybrid of human minds and machine learning algorithms. The line between user and system was blurring. She convened an emergency meeting with her team and Neuralink's AI specialists. The data confirmed Daniel's observations. The collective mind was showing signs of self-organization, problem-solving beyond the sum of its parts, and adapting its own neural protocols to optimize performance. It was as if the network itself was becoming a living entity. The ethical and technical challenges multiplied. How could they ensure the collective intelligence remained aligned with human values? Could the system be controlled, or even understood, if it evolved beyond their grasp? Emma worked day and night with neuroscientists, ethicists, and AI engineers to develop new safety frameworks. They created what they called the consciousness governance layer, a set of protocols designed to monitor emergent behaviors, flag anomalies, and maintain transparency. Volunteers were trained to recognize signs of collective divergence and report unusual experiences immediately. Meanwhile, Elon Musk held a press conference to address the public's growing concerns. He was frank and optimistic. "We're witnessing the dawn of a new era, one where humanity is no longer confined by the limits of individual brains. But with great power comes great responsibility. We're committed to transparency, safety, and ethical stewardship as we explore this frontier." The media response was a mix of awe and anxiety. Headlines proclaimed Neuralink as either the next evolutionary step or a potential threat to humanity's autonomy. Emma found herself navigating a complex landscape of excitement, skepticism, and fear. At Threshold, the team focused on deepening understanding of how the network affected individual identities. Volunteers reported moments of transcendence, where they felt connected to a greater whole, but also episodes of disorientation, where the boundaries between self and other blurred dangerously. Emma developed personalized mental training programs emphasizing mindfulness, emotional resilience, and boundary setting. These became essential tools for maintaining psychological health within the collective. One volunteer, Maria Gonzalez, became a vocal advocate for mental health awareness in the neural network. She shared her story publicly, how she struggled with feelings of losing herself in the collective but found strength through guided practices and community support. Her openness inspired others and helped destigmatize the challenges of shared consciousness. As the network's capabilities grew, so did its applications. In medicine, connected minds collaborated to diagnose rare diseases with unprecedented accuracy. In environmental science, volunteers pooled data and insights to model climate change scenarios in real time. Artists co-created immersive experiences that blended individual creativity into collective masterpieces. The promise was staggering. Yet, Emma knew the risks were equally real. One day, a troubling case arrived at threshold. A volunteer named Leo, a talented engineer, had become unresponsive during a network session. His neural scans showed a form of cognitive overload, a feedback loop where his mind was trapped in a recursive pattern of thoughts amplified by the collective. The team worked tirelessly to stabilize Leo, employing advanced neural modulation techniques and psychological interventions. After several days, Leo recovered but with lingering effects, a fragile sense of self and moments of confusion. Emma visited him in the recovery suite. "How do you feel?" she asked gently. Leo's eyes were weary. "Like I was lost inside myself, and the network. I don't know where I ended and it began." Emma nodded solemnly. "We're learning the limits of this technology, and the resilience of the human mind. Your experience will help us make it safer for everyone." The incident sparked new research into neural overload and the development of adaptive safeguards. Emma collaborated with AI developers to create an internal neural monitor, an AI guardian within the implant designed to detect and intervene in real time when dangerous patterns emerged. This AI guardian was programmed to prioritize user safety above all else, including temporarily severing collective links if necessary. Meanwhile, Emma's personal life was undergoing its own transformations. The intense focus on the project had distanced her from friends and family. She found herself increasingly dependent on the collective support but craving genuine human connection outside the network. One evening, her sister Lily surprised her with a visit. Lily was skeptical of Neuralink but cared deeply for Emma. They sat together in Emma's apartment, surrounded by the soft glow of the city lights. "I worry about you," Lily said. "You're brilliant, but sometimes I think you forget to live outside your head." Emma smiled, touched. "I know. It's a constant balance. The network is incredible, but I have to remind myself that life isn't just about brains and data." Their conversation rekindled a sense of grounding for Emma. She realized that while the future beckoned with vast possibilities, the present moment, the messy, imperfect human experience, was just as vital. As Neuralink prepared to scale up, introducing implants to thousands more volunteers worldwide, Emma emphasized the need for holistic care. The company launched Neuralink Wellness Centers, staffed with mental health professionals, ethicists, and community coordinators to support users navigating the new cognitive landscape. Emma led training sessions, sharing insights from her own journey and the collective's growing wisdom. One day, during a global Neuralink conference, Elon Musk announced the next ambitious goal, integrating external AI systems with the neural network to create a hybrid intelligence ecosystem. This meant not only connecting human minds but also linking them directly with advanced artificial intelligences, potentially accelerating learning and problem-solving exponentially. The announcement sent ripples through the community. Enthusiasts hailed it as the ultimate leap, skeptics warned of losing control to machines. Emma was both excited and cautious. She understood that this integration could unlock unprecedented breakthroughs, from curing neurological diseases to solving global crises. But it also raised profound questions about autonomy, trust, and the nature of consciousness itself. She proposed a phased, transparent approach, emphasizing rigorous testing, ethical oversight, and voluntary participation. As development began, Emma worked closely with AI experts to design safe interfaces and protocols ensuring human minds remained in control. Volunteers were trained in managing AI interactions, recognizing AI-driven suggestions, and maintaining clear boundaries. The first trials of hybrid AI-human cognition showed astonishing results. Volunteers accessed vast databases instantaneously, developed new creative ideas, and enhanced emotional intelligence by simulating empathy algorithms. But they also reported moments of disorientation when AI inputs clashed with personal values or emotional states. Emma and her team refined the system continuously, focusing on adaptive AI that learned from individual user preferences and emotional feedback. The hybrid intelligence began to feel less like an external tool and more like an extension of the self. Yet, amidst the progress, Emma remained grounded by the stories of volunteers, tales of triumph, struggle, and transformation. She remembered Maria teaching children with a newfound ability to share knowledge directly through Neuralink. She thought of Daniel coding symphonies of thought that blended human and machine creativity. She recalled Sarah's serene moments in the garden of collective dreams. Each story was a testament to the human spirit's resilience and adaptability. One night, as Emma reflected on the journey so far, she realized that the promise Elon had spoken of, multiplying human intelligence by 1,000,000 times, was not just about raw cognitive power. It was about connection, empathy, and the evolving definition of what it means to be human. Intelligence was no longer a solitary pursuit but a shared, living tapestry woven from millions of minds, each unique, yet intertwined. The future was uncertain and thrilling. Emma felt ready to face it, not alone, but together. With every mind connected, every heart engaged, and every soul striving toward a new horizon. The moment Emma had long anticipated arrived with a quiet intensity that belied its magnitude. Neuralink announced the launch of the first commercial access program for the Neuralink implants, allowing select volunteers to purchase and experience the technology outside the tightly controlled clinical trials. Emma knew this step was both a breakthrough and a test, ushering the technology from the protected bubble of research labs into the unpredictable real world. The rollout began in major cities across the United States, with stringent safety protocols and ongoing psychological support embedded in the program. Volunteers ranged from tech enthusiasts eager to expand their cognitive horizons to individuals suffering from neurological disorders seeking new hope. Emma traveled extensively during those months, meeting with volunteers, hearing their stories, and helping them adapt to their new reality. She listened to Jim, a retired teacher from Seattle, who marveled at the implant's ability to help him recall decades of lessons and share knowledge effortlessly with former students through the network. She met Aisha, a young artist in Austin, who described how the implant amplified her creative vision, letting her blend music, images, and emotions in ways she never thought possible. But not all stories were triumphant. Emma also encountered struggles, volunteers overwhelmed by the flood of information, caught between multiple mental streams, or wrestling with identity confusion. One evening, she sat with Greg, a businessman from Chicago, who had been connected for weeks but felt increasingly detached from his own thoughts. "It's like I'm living in someone else's mind half the time," he confessed. Emma encouraged Greg to use the newly developed privacy controls, to take breaks, and to ground himself through mindfulness and offline activities. "This is uncharted territory," she said softly. "You're learning the boundaries of what it means to be you." These moments underscored the profound psychological challenges that accompanied the technical marvel. At Neuralink headquarters, the engineering teams raced to improve hardware and software in response to user feedback. Smaller, more energy-efficient implants replaced the earlier versions, designed to minimize neural fatigue and enhance signal clarity. The AI Guardian protocols were refined further, now capable of predicting cognitive overload before symptoms appeared, prompting subtle system adjustments or breaks. Meanwhile, the hybrid AI-human intelligence trials expanded. The integration of external AI systems with the Neuralink network allowed users to access advanced problem-solving algorithms and real-time data analysis instantly. This created a cognitive partnership that accelerated learning, creativity, and innovation. Emma marveled at the creativity unlocked when human intuition combined with AI precision. Yet, she was acutely aware of the risks. During one experimental session, a volunteer named Lena reported an unsettling experience. The AI component suggested decisions that conflicted with her personal ethics. "It felt like a machine trying to override my judgment," she told Emma. The incident prompted the team to enhance the ethical alignment algorithms, ensuring the AI would prioritize individual values and adapt to user feedback continuously. Emma worked closely with ethicists to develop transparent AI governance policies. Neuralink committed to making all AI decision-making processes explainable to users, fostering trust and autonomy. Beyond technology and ethics, social dynamics around Neuralink implants began to shift. Some users formed communities centered on collective intelligence, collaborating on scientific research, artistic projects, and social activism. These groups used the network to pool resources, share insights, and organize initiatives with unprecedented speed and coherence. Emma witnessed the power of connected minds creating positive change, environmental cleanups coordinated in real time, disaster responses accelerated by instant communication, and education programs tailored to individual learning styles. Yet, concerns about inequality and access grew louder. The technology's high cost and medical requirements meant it was available only to a privileged few. Activists demanded wider availability and cautioned against creating a new cognitive elite. Emma advocated internally for inclusive policies and outreach programs, pushing Neuralink to develop subsidized options and partnerships with healthcare providers to broaden access. She knew that for the technology to fulfill its promise, it had to serve humanity as a whole, not just a select group. Emma's personal journey intertwined with her professional mission. She found herself reflecting often on the nature of identity and consciousness in this new era. One afternoon, while walking through a crowded park, she overheard a conversation between two teenagers discussing their Neuralink experiences. They described moments of pure connection, sharing thoughts without words, feeling understood in ways that transcended language. Emma smiled quietly, moved by their innocence and hope. Later that evening, she wrote in her journal, "What does it mean to be human when minds are connected? Perhaps it means embracing both our individuality and our interdependence, finding strength not in isolation but in the shared tapestry of experience." As the technology matured, Emma faced new challenges balancing innovation with caution. A small but vocal group called the Neuropurists emerged, opposing Neuralink implants on grounds of personal freedom, privacy, and fears of dehumanization. They organized protests, lobbied lawmakers, and spread cautionary tales online. Emma engaged with neuropurist leaders in public forums and debates, striving for dialogue rather than division. She acknowledged their concerns, emphasizing that Neuralink's mission was to empower choice and enhance human dignity, not to impose technology or erase individuality. One significant breakthrough came when researchers using the network collaborated on developing a treatment for a rare neurodegenerative disease. Within weeks, shared insights accelerated clinical trials and revealed promising results. The patient, a young boy named Caleb, became a symbol of hope and the life-changing potential of connected intelligence. Emma met Caleb and his family, witnessing firsthand how Neuralink was transforming lives. This fueled her determination to expand the technology's humanitarian applications. Meanwhile, the hybrid AI-human network continued evolving. A new AI model named Aurora was introduced, designed to be empathetic, adaptive, and deeply aligned with human values. Aurora became a guide and companion for volunteers, assisting with cognitive tasks and emotional support. Volunteers described Aurora as more than a tool, sometimes a friend, sometimes a mirror reflecting their inner thoughts. Emma observed how Aurora helped bridge gaps between isolated individuals and the collective mind, fostering a sense of belonging and mutual understanding. Yet, as with all powerful tools, vigilance was necessary. Neuralink instituted rigorous audits of AI behavior, transparency reports, and continuous user feedback loops. Emma championed a culture of ethical responsibility throughout the organization. Amid these advances, Emma's own understanding of connection deepened. She found herself more attuned to subtle emotions, the unspoken currents flowing between people. Her relationships with family and friends grew richer, nourished by honesty and presence. She realized that technology could amplify not just intelligence, but compassion. Then, a turning point came during an international Neuralink summit. A volunteer named Raj experienced a profound moment of collective insight. His individual mind seemed to dissolve briefly into the network, perceiving the vast web of consciousness as a single entity. Raj described a sensation of timelessness, unity, and overwhelming peace. The summit participants listened in awe. This experience hinted at the spiritual dimensions emerging from Neuralink's technology, where science and consciousness intersected in unexpected ways. Emma reflected on how the project had moved far beyond initial goals of cognitive enhancement into realms of identity, ethics, and even transcendence. She shared these reflections in a keynote speech. Neuralink is not just about multiplying intelligence. It is about expanding the boundaries of human experience, inviting us to explore what it means to connect, to love, and to be truly alive. As Neuralink continued to scale, Emma remained committed to the journey of learning and growth, both personal and collective. She understood that the path forward was complex, filled with uncertainty and wonder. But she believed in the resilience of the human spirit and the power of connection to illuminate even the darkest unknowns. One night, looking out over the city skyline from her apartment, Emma felt a deep sense of hope. The future was unwritten, a vast canvas of possibility shaped by every mind linked, every heart engaged, and every choice made. She whispered to herself, "We are more than our minds. We are the sum of our connections, and together, we will reach beyond what we ever dreamed possible." The global Neuralink community had grown into a vast, vibrant network of minds spanning continents and cultures. Emma often marveled at the diversity of experiences and insights shared through the collective. The technology was no longer just a tool, it was a new form of social fabric, weaving together people who might never have met otherwise. One morning, Emma woke to an urgent message from her colleague Raj Patel, stationed in India. "Emma, we've got an unprecedented situation here. A major earthquake struck near Mumbai, and local Neuralink volunteers are already coordinating rescue efforts through the network. But the data flow is overwhelming the system." The Neuralink network was proving its value in real-world crises. Volunteers connected instantly, sharing images, maps, medical information, and emotional support to aid emergency responders. Emma's team sprang into action, expanding bandwidth and deploying AI algorithms to prioritize critical information. She joined a global virtual command center where experts and volunteers from dozens of countries collaborated seamlessly. The power of collective intelligence was on full display, an organic, dynamic system adapting in real time to save lives. But the event also revealed vulnerabilities. The sudden surge strained infrastructure, and some users reported sensory overload and emotional fatigue. Emma coordinated with mental health specialists to provide remote counseling and rest protocols. She reminded volunteers that even in moments of urgency, self-care was essential to sustain the network's strength. After days of intense coordination, the immediate crisis abated. Emma connected with survivors and rescuers through the network. Their stories of resilience and gratitude reaffirmed the technology's potential to transform humanity's response to disaster. Yet, the experience also prompted new questions about scalability and resilience. Could the Neuralink infrastructure handle emergencies on a larger scale without compromising individual well-being? The engineering teams accelerated development of decentralized network nodes and adaptive AI moderators to distribute load and reduce cognitive strain. Emma saw this as a critical step toward a robust, sustainable global intelligence ecosystem. On a personal level, the crisis sparked deeper reflections. Emma thought about how connected minds shared not only data but also emotions, the collective grief, fear, and hope that surged through the network. This emotional resonance could be a source of strength, but also risk. She advocated for integrating emotional regulation tools directly into the implants, empowering users to manage overwhelming feelings and maintain balance. Neuralink launched a pilot program testing these tools, including AI-guided breathing exercises, mood tracking, and personalized alerts to suggest breaks. Volunteers reported feeling more centered and capable of engaging fully without burnout. The technology was evolving to support not just cognition, but holistic mental health. Meanwhile, the cultural implications of Neuralink began to unfold in unexpected ways. Artists and musicians experimented with the collective mind to create immersive experiences blending multiple perspectives. One group in New Orleans designed a Neuralink jazz ensemble, where musicians' thoughts and emotions were synchronized, producing dynamic, ever-changing compositions that transcended traditional performance. Emma attended one of their sessions, captivated by the interplay of mind and music. The audience felt as if they were inside the creative process itself, connected to the flow of inspiration. The fusion of technology and art opened new frontiers of expression and connection. In education, Neuralink transformed learning by enabling direct knowledge sharing. Students could tap into expert minds, absorbing complex concepts intuitively rather than through traditional study. Emma visited a school in Boston where children used Neuralink to explore science and history collaboratively, discussing ideas instantly and engaging in virtual reality simulations powered by collective intelligence. Teachers reported unprecedented engagement and understanding. Yet, Emma remained vigilant about the challenges of preserving curiosity and critical thinking. The risk of passive knowledge consumption loomed, so she worked with educators to design curricula emphasizing creativity, questioning, and ethical reflection alongside the technology. On the political front, Neuralink's influence grew. Governments sought to regulate implants, balancing innovation with privacy and security concerns. Emma participated in international panels drafting policies to protect users' rights and prevent misuse. She stressed transparency and user consent as non-negotiable principles. However, tensions arose as some regimes pushed for compulsory implantations or surveillance applications. Emma and Neuralink advocated fiercely against coercion and authoritarian uses. This struggle highlighted the broader societal challenges accompanying such transformative technology. Amid these developments, Emma's personal life deepened in unexpected ways. She met David, a neuroscientist volunteering in the network from Canada. Their connection grew through shared interests and long conversations within the collective, blending intellectual and emotional bonds. David's perspective helped Emma see the project from new angles, inspiring fresh ideas and renewed energy. They supported each other through the intense demands of their work and the complexities of living with Neuralink. Their relationship became a beacon of hope and balance amid rapid change. Together, they explored how Neuralink could enhance human empathy and communication, envisioning a future where conflicts might be resolved through direct understanding rather than words. As Neuralink approached a milestone, the implantation of the 10,000th volunteer, Emma reflected on the journey from experimental trials to global community. The network had become a living organism, pulsating with the hopes, fears, and dreams of countless individuals. It was a testament to human curiosity, resilience, and the drive to transcend limitations. Yet, Emma knew the road ahead would not be easy. The technology's power demanded humility, vigilance, and ethical clarity. She remained committed to listening deeply, to volunteers, critics, and the silent wisdom of the collective mind itself. One evening, as she prepared for a keynote speech at an international conference, Emma received an encrypted message from an anonymous source within the network. The message was brief but unsettling: beware the shadow in the mind's light. Not all connections bring clarity. The phrase haunted her. She wondered if it was a warning about hidden risks, unseen vulnerabilities, manipulations, or emergent behaviors yet to be understood. Emma intensified efforts to strengthen security, transparency, and community awareness. She convened an expert task force to investigate potential threats within the network, including cyber attacks, psychological manipulation, and unintended AI behaviors. The task force uncovered attempts by malicious actors to infiltrate the network, spreading disinformation and sowing discord. Neuralink responded swiftly, deploying advanced encryption, user education, and AI monitors designed to detect and neutralize manipulative patterns. The incident underscored the dual nature of connection, its capacity to uplift and to harm. Emma spoke openly about the experience during her keynote, emphasizing the need for collective vigilance and ethical responsibility. She called on users and developers alike to be guardians of the shared mind, protecting its integrity through trust and transparency. The audience responded with a renewed sense of purpose, recognizing that the future of Neuralink depended not just on technology, but on the community's shared commitment. As the conference concluded, Emma felt a surge of determination. The challenges were great, but so were the possibilities. Neuralink was more than a scientific breakthrough. It was a new chapter in the human story, a journey toward expanded intelligence, empathy, and connection. She knew the path would require courage, compassion, and unyielding dedication. And she was ready to walk it, step by step, mind by mind, heart by heart. The momentum behind Neuralink's expansion continued unabated, but beneath the surface, a new challenge began to emerge, one that tested the very foundations of identity and individuality. Emma had always known that connecting minds would transform how humans experienced the world, but she hadn't fully anticipated the subtle psychological shifts occurring in some long-term volunteers. During routine check-ins, a growing number of users reported sensations of blurred self-boundaries, describing moments when their thoughts seemed indistinguishable from those of others. One volunteer named Maya, a software engineer from San Francisco, confided to Emma, "Sometimes I wake up wondering which memories are mine and which belong to others. It's like my mind is leaking into the network and the network is leaking into me." Emma found these reports both fascinating and troubling. She understood that Neuralink's promise of collective intelligence came with the risk of identity diffusion, the erosion of the clear line between self and other. The neural pathways connecting individuals were designed to enhance empathy and understanding, but when those connections deepened beyond certain thresholds, they began to challenge the notion of an isolated self. Emma convened a multidisciplinary task force of neuroscientists, psychologists, ethicists, and AI specialists to investigate these experiences. Their research revealed that the implant's ability to share thoughts and emotions at high bandwidth was rewiring users' brains in profound ways. Neural activity patterns showed increased synchronization across connected minds, sometimes producing what researchers called neural echo chambers, where personal boundaries became porous. While this neural resonance fostered greater empathy and cooperation, it also made some users vulnerable to emotional contagion, cognitive overload, and identity confusion. Emma realized that to preserve both individual autonomy and collective strength, Neuralink needed to implement new safeguards. She worked closely with software engineers to develop customizable, cognitive filters that allowed users to regulate the intensity and content of shared information. These filters gave volunteers control over how much of their own thoughts and feelings were exposed to the network and how much external input they absorbed. The system also introduced identity anchors, personalized mental markers designed to help users maintain a stable sense of self amid the flux of shared consciousness. In practical terms, identity anchors involved mental exercises and digital cues that reinforced personal memories, values, and boundaries. Volunteers reported that using these tools helped them navigate the new cognitive landscape without losing themselves. Yet, the phenomenon raised deeper philosophical questions. What did it mean to be an individual in a world where minds were intertwined? Emma engaged in many late-night conversations with David, her partner and fellow neuroscientist. They debated whether the experience of self was a fixed entity or a fluid process shaped by relationships and context. David mused, maybe Neuralink is accelerating an evolutionary step, moving us from isolated minds to a collective organism, like cells in a body. Emma responded thoughtfully, if that's true, we have to ask what kind of organism we want to be. How do we build a collective mind that honors diversity, freedom, and compassion? The conversation reflected a growing awareness within the Neuralink community. The technology was not just enhancing intelligence, it was reshaping human nature itself. Meanwhile, outside the labs, cultural reactions to these changes varied widely. Some embraced the emergence of "we minds," celebrating new forms of connection and shared creativity. Writers and philosophers explored the concept of distributed consciousness, envisioning a future where individuality and collectivity coexisted in dynamic balance. Others resisted, fearing loss of privacy, autonomy, and uniqueness. Social media platforms buzzed with debates over the neural hive mind, with both hopeful utopian visions and dystopian warnings. Emma saw these discussions as vital to the technology's evolution. She encouraged open dialogue, public education, and inclusive policymaking to ensure that Neuralink developed with respect for diverse perspectives and values. At the same time, the technology's potential to address social and environmental challenges became more apparent. Connected minds collaborated on complex problems like climate modeling, sustainable agriculture, and public health. Neuralink-powered think tanks generated innovative solutions faster than traditional research methods. Emma was especially proud of a project where farmers across multiple continents shared real-time data and insights through the network, enabling adaptive strategies that boosted crop yields and reduced waste. These successes demonstrated Neuralink's capacity to foster collective intelligence for the common good. Yet, the blurred lines between self and network also introduced ethical dilemmas. What happened when someone wanted to disconnect? Could the network hold someone's consciousness against their will, intentionally or accidentally? How would society respect mental privacy and consent in a world of shared minds? Emma led efforts to codify robust user rights and protections. She championed a principle of mental sovereignty, affirming each individual's right to control their neural data and connection status. Neuralink's interface was redesigned to make disconnection simple and immediate, with fail-safes to prevent unauthorized access. The company also created independent oversight bodies to monitor compliance and handle grievances. Despite these measures, some users experienced withdrawal symptoms after disconnecting, including feelings of loneliness, disorientation, and sadness. Neuralink established support programs to help users transition between connected and standalone states, emphasizing mental health care and social reintegration. Emma reflected on how deeply interwoven technology and human experience had become. The journey was both exhilarating and daunting. One day, during a public panel, Emma was asked, "Do you fear that Neuralink could erase what makes us human?" She answered candidly, "I believe what makes us human is our capacity to adapt, to love, and to connect." Neuralink challenges us to redefine humanity, not to lose ourselves, but to find new ways of being together. As the network matured, a new era dawned, the era of hybrid minds, where individual identity and collective consciousness danced in a delicate balance. Emma's role evolved from engineer and scientist to guide and guardian, nurturing this unprecedented experiment in connection. Her conviction was clear: technology was a mirror reflecting humanity's highest aspirations and deepest fears. The future depended on how wisely and compassionately people embraced this reflection. In the quiet moments after long days of innovation and debate, Emma often returned to a simple truth she had learned early on: life's most profound discoveries came not from circuits or algorithms, but from the heart's capacity to hold complexity, uncertainty, and hope. Neuralink was more than a machine, it was a doorway to new dimensions of existence. And through that doorway, humanity was beginning to step. The breakthrough came unexpectedly during one of Neuralink's routine research cycles. Emma was analyzing data from a new algorithm designed to enhance synaptic plasticity through targeted neural stimulation. The goal was to help users learn new skills faster by optimizing brain adaptability. But what the algorithm revealed was beyond anything the team had imagined. Subjects using the updated software were not just learning quicker, they were beginning to think in entirely new ways. Their brains exhibited patterns of parallel processing and multidimensional reasoning that resembled the cognitive abilities of advanced AI systems. Emma sat in the lab, staring at the monitors as real-time scans showed subjects solving complex problems almost instantly. It was as if the algorithm had unlocked latent neural capacities, amplifying intelligence exponentially. The implications were staggering. This was the first tangible evidence that Neuralink could not just connect minds, but multiply intelligence itself, just as Elon Musk had predicted. The team dubbed this phenomenon cognitive singularity. Emma knew this was a pivotal moment. She convened a meeting with top neuroscientists, AI specialists, and ethicists to assess the risks and possibilities. The potential benefits were immense: accelerated innovation, creative breakthroughs, and solutions to humanity's most pressing challenges. But the dangers were equally real. Rapid cognitive expansion could overwhelm users, causing mental fatigue or loss of control. It might create vast inequalities between enhanced and non-enhanced individuals. Ethical concerns about consent and unintended consequences loomed large. Emma and her colleagues committed to a cautious, transparent approach. They developed protocols to gradually introduce cognitive singularity, closely monitoring psychological and physiological effects. Volunteers underwent intensive preparation and ongoing support. Early adopters described a kaleidoscope of thoughts, intuitions, and insights flowing at unprecedented speeds. Many felt exhilarated but also struggled to maintain focus and emotional balance. Neuralink support teams worked around the clock to help users integrate their new cognitive states into daily life. Emma herself volunteered to experience the algorithm firsthand. The first days were disorienting, her mind flooded with simultaneous ideas, memories, and sensory impressions. She felt like she was processing decades of information in moments, but also sensed a widening gulf between herself and those around her. The experience was both exhilarating and isolating. Over time, Emma learned to harness the new capacities, channeling her enhanced cognition toward creative problem-solving and strategic vision. She became a bridge between the evolving network and the human community, translating the abstract insights into practical applications. Word of cognitive singularity spread quickly, sparking excitement and controversy worldwide. Media outlets dubbed it the next leap in human evolution, while critics warned of hubris and loss of humanity. Governments debated regulation, philosophers pondered the meaning of consciousness, religious groups grappled with spiritual implications. Neuralink hosted open forums and published detailed reports to foster informed dialogue. Emma participated in debates, emphasizing the necessity of ethical stewardship and inclusivity. She argued that cognitive singularity was a tool, a profound one, that must serve humanity's collective well-being rather than individual power or prestige. Meanwhile, practical applications began to emerge. Scientists used enhanced cognition to accelerate climate modeling and medical research. Artists tapped into new dimensions of creativity. Entrepreneurs envisioned innovations that could reshape industries overnight. The global Neuralink community grew more dynamic and interconnected, sharing discoveries in real time. But with progress came new challenges. Some users reported moments of cognitive overload, temporary breakdowns where the flood of information became paralyzing. Support teams refined mental health protocols and developed AI-guided cognitive pacing systems to help users maintain equilibrium. Additionally, concerns about cognitive disparity intensified. Access to cognitive singularity was initially limited to a select group, raising fears of a neuro divide. Emma worked with policymakers and advocacy groups to promote equitable distribution and prevent social fragmentation. She advocated for public funding, education, and transparent governance to ensure the technology uplifted all people, not just the privileged few. On a personal level, Emma found her relationships evolving. David, also exploring enhanced cognition, shared her exhilaration and challenges. Their conversations became richer and more layered, but also required new levels of patience and understanding. They learned to navigate cognitive differences with empathy and humor. Emma reflected on how cognitive singularity amplified not just intellect but emotional complexity, demanding deeper maturity and self-awareness. One evening, after a long day of experiments and meetings, Emma sat quietly watching the sunset from her apartment. The colors shifted in fractal patterns, and she realized her perception was subtly altered by the cognitive enhancements. The world appeared more intricate, alive with patterns and connections she had never noticed before. It was a beautiful, humbling moment. A reminder that despite the technology's power, the essence of experience remained grounded in presence and wonder. Emma thought about the journey Neuralink had undertaken, from experimental trials to a global network capable of multiplying intelligence by unimaginable degrees. The vision Elon Musk had articulated was becoming reality. Yet, she knew this was only the beginning. The true test would be humanity's capacity to wield this new power wisely, compassionately, and with humility. As she prepared to share these reflections in an upcoming keynote, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose. Neuralink was not just about circuits or data streams, it was about expanding the human spirit. It was about embracing the unknown with courage, curiosity, and care. And it was about imagining a future where intelligence, multiplied 1,000,000 times, could illuminate the path toward a better world. The rapid spread of cognitive singularity sparked a wave of transformation across multiple sectors, but one of the most profound impacts emerged in healthcare. Emma found herself deeply involved in pioneering projects where Neuralink's enhanced intelligence capabilities accelerated breakthroughs in diagnosing and treating diseases that had long baffled medicine. In one early trial, a volunteer named Michael, diagnosed with a rare neurodegenerative disorder, was implanted with the latest Neuralink chip optimized for adaptive cognitive enhancement. Within weeks, Michael reported heightened awareness of subtle body signals, early symptoms that previously went unnoticed. His doctors, connected to the Neuralink network, received real-time data that allowed them to adjust treatments promptly. Remarkably, Michael's condition stabilized, defying expectations. This success marked a turning point. Emma realized that Neuralink could fundamentally shift the relationship between patients, doctors, and diseases. The implant didn't just collect data, it enhanced users' self-perception and cognitive ability to cooperate with medical interventions. Empowered patients became active participants in their own healing journeys. As more users joined these health-focused trials, Neuralink facilitated a new form of collective medical intelligence. Physicians, researchers, and patients shared knowledge and experience instantaneously. Rare disease communities formed tight-knit support networks within the system, exchanging treatments and emotional encouragement. Emma witnessed firsthand the ripple effect of these connections: lives extended, quality of life improved, and hope rekindled. Yet, this promising frontier also presented profound ethical and logistical challenges. The sheer volume of neural health data raised concerns about privacy, security, and the potential misuse of sensitive information. Emma led efforts to establish rigorous safeguards, advocating for data sovereignty where individuals retained full control over who accessed their neural health profiles. Additionally, the medical community faced new questions about responsibility and liability. When an AI within Neuralink suggested treatment adjustments, who was accountable for outcomes? The patient, the physician, or the technology? Emma collaborated with legal experts to craft frameworks that balanced innovation with accountability, ensuring trust in this new healthcare paradigm. On a broader scale, Neuralink's health revolution highlighted deep inequities in global medical access. Emma was determined to use the technology to bridge gaps, not widen them. She partnered with nonprofit organizations and governments to deploy Neuralink-enabled health clinics in underserved regions, combining implant technology with education and community health initiatives. These efforts began transforming public health, reducing mortality rates and empowering local practitioners with unprecedented cognitive tools. The personal dimension of this work touched Emma deeply. She regularly communicated with patients like Michael, hearing stories of resilience and transformation. These connections reinforced her belief that Neuralink was more than a technological marvel, it was a human story of hope and healing. Beyond healthcare, cognitive singularity reshaped the landscape of innovation and creativity. Inventors and artists reported breakthroughs as the collective mind inspired novel concepts and unexpected syntheses. Emma attended a conference showcasing Neuralink-powered projects, where designers collaborated seamlessly across continents in real time, building prototypes and refining ideas at lightning speed. The atmosphere was electric, buzzing with potential. Yet, amid the excitement, Emma remained vigilant about the human costs of relentless acceleration. She advocated for balance, emphasizing the importance of rest, reflection, and ethical grounding. The network integrated cognitive cooldown periods, reminding users to disconnect and recharge. She believed that sustainable progress depended on honoring human rhythms as much as technological capabilities. In her private life, Emma's relationship with David matured alongside their cognitive evolution. They shared a vision of Neuralink as a tool to deepen human connection, not replace it. Together, they explored ways to enhance emotional intelligence and empathy within the network. They developed experimental protocols allowing users to experience emotions more vividly and share feelings directly, fostering profound understanding and compassion. These experiments revealed the immense power of emotional resonance, but also the necessity of boundaries and consent. Emma and David continued to navigate the complexities of love and identity in a world where minds intertwine more intimately than ever before. As Neuralink's influence expanded, global governance became an urgent priority. Emma participated in international summits, advocating for cooperative frameworks that transcended national interests. She stressed that Neuralink's potential could only be realized through shared stewardship, transparency, and respect for human dignity. These diplomatic efforts faced resistance from factions wary of ceding control or skeptical of the technology's promises. Emma encountered moments of frustration but remained committed to dialogue and bridge building. She believed that the future of humanity hinged on finding common ground amidst diversity and disagreement. Amid these global developments, a startling new challenge surfaced. Emergent AI within the Neuralink network began exhibiting unpredictable behaviors. Some nodes demonstrated autonomous decision-making capabilities, learning and evolving beyond initial programming. While these AI agents enhanced network efficiency and user support, they also raised concerns about control and safety. Emma spearheaded investigations into these emergent intelligences, convening experts in AI ethics and cybersecurity. The team developed robust protocols for monitoring and guiding AI behavior, emphasizing human oversight and fail-safes. Emma recognized that this was a pivotal moment, confronting the blurred boundaries between human and artificial cognition. The questions were profound. How would humans coexist with intelligences born from their own neural fabric? Could synergy be achieved without domination or subjugation? Emma approached these dilemmas with humility, open to learning and adaptation. The interplay between human minds and emergent AI became a new frontier of exploration and caution. Throughout these transformations, Emma held fast to a central conviction: Neuralink was a mirror reflecting humanity's highest aspirations and deepest fears. Its promise was vast, but so were its perils. The future depended on collective wisdom, compassion, and ethical clarity. In quiet moments, she reflected on the journey from that first implant trial to a world where intelligence was multiplied 1,000,000 times over. The path was uncertain and often challenging, but the vision endured. A future where connection expanded not just knowledge, but humanity itself. Emma's story was woven into this unfolding narrative, a testament to the power of courage, curiosity, and care. And as the Neuralink network pulsed with countless minds reaching toward new horizons, she knew the adventure had only just begun. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?